And welcome. Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Authors Love Bookstores, presented by A Mighty Blaze. My name is Kimberly Hensle Lowrance, and I'm your host. Here on Authors Love Bookstores, we bring to you a conversation with an author and her favorite independent bookstore to shine a light on storytelling and creativity, essential parts of our culture and our collective human experience. We talk about the book written by our guest author, and we'll also discuss what makes the indie bookstore we're featuring so special. We hope you'll be inspired to read our guest's writing, buy this book from the bookstore we're featuring, and someday, even when it's safe to travel, visit the bookstore in person. I suppose it is safe to travel these days. I just keep forgetting that.
I'm not. Well, I'm personally not ready to travel, so I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the mall today for the first time, and I was like, I haven't done this since 2019. It was such a strange experience, all the things we're adjusting back to. Okay, so I host and produce this show in conjunction with fellow writer Joe Moldover, whose name I really can say, and we're so glad that you are here with us today. If you're watching live with us on Facebook and YouTube, feel free to post a question below the broadcast and we will get to as many as we can later on. Okay, so I'm so excited for today because we have with us debut author, which we don't always get here on the shows. It's very exciting. So we are very pleased to welcome Thien-Kim Lam, who is the author of this wonderful book called Happy Endings, which we will discuss, and also Roseanne Backlund, who is co-owner of Love's Sweet Arrow, to the show today. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So excited you're here. Okay, let me do a little bit of background. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Thien-Kim for a long time, back in the olden days of blogging. We were both bloggers. And so I had the pleasure of getting to know her when she was really focused 100% on her blog called I'm Not the Nanny. She has since branched out to many other wonderful avenues of creativity and entrepreneurship, and we will talk about that today. She writes stories about Vietnamese characters who smash stereotypes and find their happy endings. She is the founder also of Body Bookworms, a subscription box that pairs sexy romances with erotic toys. She's been featured on a number of big news services like NPR, BBC America, and NBC. She also writes about multicultural parenting, again on her blog, I'm Not the Nanny, and has been featured on other sites like NPR's All Things Considered and BBC World. This is her debut novel, Happy Endings, which is such a fun read. And Roseanne is the co-owner, as I mentioned earlier, of Love's Sweet Arrow in Tinley Park, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. Love's Sweet Arrow is one of 2 romance-only bookstores in the United States, and it's the only one run by a mother-daughter team. She founded the store with her daughter, Marissa, and they're coming up on their 2-year anniversary. It's this weekend, isn't it, that you're celebrating 2 years of connecting readers with wonderful stories. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so Thien-Kim, I know you've had the pleasure of seeing many bookstores in your experience writing your novel and getting out there and promoting it. What is it about Love's Sweet Arrow that you think is so special that you wanted to talk to Roseanne today?
Oh, well, I feel like I have a personal connection with Roseanne because she joined our Body Bookworms community, Body Bookworms Insider, and I got to know her as a person before I learned that she was opening a romance-only bookstore. And, she's in there chatting about books, and we connected that way, and I really wanted to partner with her for today's event.
Excellent. And so, Roseanne, why did you and your daughter want to open up a romance-only bookstore? What was the inspiration?
No, the inspiration is going to bookstores and not finding what you want to read.
Ooh.
I mean, the closest bookstore was Barnes & Noble. Before that was Borders before they went out. Mm-hmm. And you would have to literally go through the whole fiction section because that's where romance was, in fiction. And you'd have to know what you were looking for. And just our love of romance. We talked about if we ever won the lottery, and we played, and we didn't win the lottery, so please, everyone understand that. We opened this bookstore on a dime. It's just some friends and family. So your dream is if you ever win the lottery, what would you do? And ours was to open a romance bookstore.
Ooh, I
That's
love that.
the story. Yes. And so I said to Marissa, after we obviously didn't win the lottery a couple months later, I said, seriously, if we're going to do this, let's start doing it. And so it was a year in the making. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's so important because I have been in um, bookstores and looked at the romance section, and maybe it's like half the shelf, and then half of the books on there wouldn't be considered romance by romance readers, like Nicholas Sparks. Yeah, his books are popular, but if someone dies at the end, it's not a romance. So it's great that Roseanne is doing this and creating a really welcoming space because I have heard of people who go into bookstores and ask about romance books, and the staff is like, "Oh no, we don't carry that." Like it's very, condescending or snobby. So it makes people less willing to go into stores and ask for books that they want to read or ask for recommendations.
Yeah, that breaks my heart because no one should be judged for the book that they want to read. Yes. Like you should celebrate that people are buying books, right? And there shouldn't be judgment behind it. And especially since like at the heart of a romance novel is just a great story.
Yeah. And let me just tell you a quick story. Yesterday, our UPS guy changed. Who knew? And so he brought in, and we had a huge, there's like 5 boxes. And I'm like, oh, you brought me the books. And he's like, you're a bookstore, right? And I said, yeah. And I said, we're romance exclusive. So we talked for a few minutes. And he said, I'm going to come back on my break one day soon. And today he came back, and I'm not open, but I was here for deliveries. And he bought a book.
Hooray!
Yes, he bought a romantic suspense. I kind of went through the different genres to see what he was looking for, and he's like, I'm not really sure, but probably a suspense. And so he said he's going to come back and tell me how he liked it.
What's the percentage of, when you look at your customers, is it mostly women who come in the store?
Probably about 80 to 85%, but there are quite a few men. And that's why my daughter's like, Mom, why are you looking like that? I said, I'm just looking like that because this is the second time I've talked to him in my life. And the second time was he came in to buy a book from me. He wasn't bringing me books today. He just came in on his break. I'm like, so to me, that was just fun and exciting. Yeah.
So when you talk about a romance, Thien-Kim, you just said this, that if someone dies at the end, it's not a romance. So what makes it a romance novel? There's a love story.
So it's a love story that has a happy ending. So HEA you'll hear, or happily for now, HFN. So the couple always ends up together, kind of like in James Patterson books, like the killer or whomever is always caught, right? So in romance, it could be a couple, it could be multiple people, depending on their relationship. They always end up together, and they're happy. They may or may not get married. It depends on the author.
So in that definition, wouldn't like a Jane Austen book be considered a romance novel?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's considered great literature.
Yeah.
She, some people consider her like one of the first romance writers.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. So speaking of other romance novels that everyone should be reading right now, along with everything else on Roseanne's shelf, but this book is so great. So your new book, Thien-Kim, Happy Endings, is receiving so much buzz. Kirkus calls this book, quote, a sweet and sexy romance, and adds that your debut is full of heat and heart. All of Trixie's sex toys are put to good use in smoking hot love scenes. I didn't know Kirkus actually could write like this. But the novel also highlights the strong emotional connections Trixie and Andre have to family and community. Congratulations. It's a great review. And there's a lot of fun. And this book is so much fun. Can you tell our audience about your book? Who are Trixie and Andre?
Sure. So Happy Endings is a second chance romance between Trixie, who's a Vietnamese American woman, and Andre, a Black man who lives in DC. And Trixie sells sex toys. That's her business. And Andre runs a soul food restaurant in DC in a neighborhood that's being gentrified. So he's, business is not as good. His mom, he inherited the restaurant from his mom. He really wants to keep it going and keep her legacy alive. And Trixie, like, she's got big dreams of owning her own boutique, not working for a company, and just really like having the chance to educate more people about pleasure and toys. So they had a not great breakup in the past, which happens before the book, but they run into each other again. And they decide to work together to help each other, save his business and grow her dream by doing pop-up shops in this restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So things get pretty steamy because they have to spend all this time together.
Mm-hmm. It is steamy. That's very true. What inspired you to write a romance novel? Had this been a dream for you for a long time? Had you?
No, actually, I had not thought about writing books at all. Maybe except in the last like 5 or 6 years. I've been reading romance since I was, not even a teen. I've always loved them. I love the idea that love always wins, and there's hope. And like that someone can always find that person who will love them for who they are, right? And as I got older and I was, I had less time to read, become a mom, and I wanted to find books that really resonated with me. And I just got tired of reading the same romance stories over and over. Not to say that they're bad, but just romance with people I can relate to, white people falling in love. I wanted to see people who looked like me, and my life around me. So that was one of the main reasons that I wanted to write happy endings. I wanted to have a really awesome Vietnamese American heroine who is not doing a traditional job, and what you consider like Asian people, being a doctor or a lawyer. Like, she's doing something different, something I would like even say creative, right? Her career has to be very creative. And so that was really important for me to say that, show people that, hey, like, Vietnamese people can do more than run a nail salon or own a convenience store, or whatever stereotypical careers that Vietnamese people have.
Wonderful. And how did the muse bring you to Trixie and Andre? How did you come onto this particular story that you wanted to tell?
Sure. I thought about all of the things that I like to read in a romance. And I love to read about food in romances. So I knew that there had to be some kind of food element. And I like cooking, and like, I'm a huge fan of like Top Chef and, the Food Network back when they actually taught you how to cook. And I thought, like, what can I do with Trixie to make her like not like your typical like Asian character? And I said, well, I mean, I have all this experience, educating people and selling toys. Like, why not make that part of her character?
Excellent. I think that's an unexpected part of the book. Like, I have to say, I've never read a story about someone whose job it is to sell sex toys. So it's really fun to read that and to learn about how ambitious she is, how creative. I think that the book has this really nice thread through it about kind of finding your own path and believing in your dreams and making them happen, like, independent of the love story. Like, Trixie is this fully formed character who has a career and aspirations, and it's really fun to be able to dive into that.
Yeah, that's what I love about romance, because in most romances, the main characters, like, they have their own dreams, and it doesn't depend on the person that they fall in love with.
Great. So, Roseanne, you mentioned earlier when the UPS man came in, you were able to connect him to romance suspense. And that actually is one of the questions we're always curious about, is this role that booksellers play in matching the reader with the book. Like, it's a magic that you do, some sort of like, I don't know, telepathy, or like, and how do you like match the right reader with the right book? How do you do that?
It's really not hard. From the standpoint of when they walk in, if they're looking around, I'll always try to explain the different sections in the store, because we have each of our genres separate.
Okay.
And they're all arranged alphabetically. So I'll do the little 2-second tour where I'll show them where everything is, and then I'll tell them in the back room, which is our event space, where our used books are. And then I'll say, what are you looking for? What do you like to read? What interests you? And from there, that's where then you start picking the different genres. And since he was kind of on the shelf, I thought, let's start with suspense because everyone likes suspense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, not everybody, I guess, but I like suspense. And so I thought, and I even showed him a couple of different books that I had read by some different authors. And then I said, well, you just let me know if you have any more questions. So people kind of have an idea what they're looking for. They just need Rex when they get in there.
Okay. You mentioned that in the back of the store, you have an event space.
Mm-hmm.
So pre-COVID, did you have a live event, a memorable, actually I should broaden that to say even during COVID, have you hosted any events virtually or before you closed down that were particularly memorable that you want to tell our audience about?
Well, so for about 8 months, we were having events in the store. In fact, our last event before COVID was February 29th, John McGregor came.
Okay.
So some of her followers from around the area, because we tend to try to get social media, we put in our newsletters, came to meet her, and it was a lot of fun. We did the Christmas before and Thanksgiving, we did one night, we did Wine and Words, and a local winery donated some Romance Red of their wine. And then we just played games with the authors all night. And oh my goodness, the laughing in the back room. Both Marissa and I are like fighting who would go back there and who had to watch the front door because it's so fun. And then after COVID, as soon as COVID started, we by April we were switching to all virtual events. So we had a lot in April. We started on Facebook, and we still could do them on Facebook. But then by May, we got a Zoom account. And so what we do is the authors and the moderators are on Zoom, and everyone else watches it on YouTube. And then you could comment on there. And we probably, I would say safely have 30 or 40 events up there. And so then you can go back and watch them later.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
So one of the things that I really appreciated about this book, it was the sex scenes. They are very good. I'm just going to put it out there. They're really good. And they made me think of the queen herself, Diana Gabaldon. I know I'm a huge Outlander fan. And I read an article with her once when she said that in a really good sex scene, it is so much more than sex. Like what's actually happening. There's a connection between the characters and they're talking about something else, whether it's lust or love or grief or anger or jealousy. There's something else going on. It's not just this physical act that the two people are sharing. And I thought about that when I read your book because I felt like there was so much more. I mean, first of all, they were fiery and steamy. Absolutely. But also they felt true to the characters and they felt like they were telling us something about who they were. And so I am just very fascinated about how you came to write such good sex scenes because it is intimidating to do that. How did you do it?
Well, first of all, thank you, because that's what I was trying to do. I think that people think sex scenes are easy because it's just like insert, slot like tab A and a slot B or whatever. But I think what makes a sex scene more interesting and riveting is that we can move the story along. And there's a lot of great romance authors who can do this. And I've read so many of them. I thought like, wow, like if I could just write something so emotional, because like sex as the mechanics is basically the same thing, right? Like how do you make it different? How do you make it interesting? And knowing what the characters are going through and what they're doing, why are they together at this point of their relationship? How does that affect how they work with each other? How does that affect how they talk to each other? And what happens afterwards? Are they like sad? Like, are they like, oh crap, I shouldn't have done that?
Right.
That was a bad decision. Or it's like, hey, maybe like this could be, the beginning of something exciting. And I think that's what makes love scenes fun to read.
So how did you actually do it though? Did you read? So it sounds like you read a lot of romance novels to get inspiration. And
Okay.
I'm curious. Like, I'm curious.
Oh, okay.
Did you have?
Oh,
feedback?
you want to know like the actual process?
Well,
Well,
I'm curious. We have a lot of writers who watch our show, and we've never had an author on who has written. Like I was telling you before we came live, this is our 59th show, and we've never had someone come on the show whose book has, is so successful in this area before. And so I'm just curious for those people who are struggling, like, how do I write this? Like, what are some tips that you might offer?
okay. This is hard. My tip would be to figure out where do you want the relationship to be at the end of the scene?
Ooh.
Right? What do you want to happen between, like, what did this one character realize about how they feel about the other? Or, does not to be both characters. Why are they doing this? Right? And then the actual act, I think it just depends on the character. Like, would they go all the way at this early in the relationship? Or would they just, go to second base or whatever? So I think that all depends on the characters. The hardest part for me was like figure out like which arm was where. Thank goodness for my copywriter. She's like, actually, they should be like sitting down at this point. I'm like, oh yeah, right. So, I think I need to get those like wooden mannequins that they have for drawing, so I can like pose them and figure out where things are going for the next book. So that part was tougher for me, but I think like I've been reading romance for so long. I also read a lot of erotica. Which if you read the erotica that appeals to me is all about the mental journey of the character as they're doing these things with or without a partner, because that's fascinating, right? Like I think pleasure and intimacy is there's so much in your head and your emotions, and you really want to capture that when you're writing about it, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not. I had one scene that my agent was like, do they really need, like, they're just having sex here just to have sex? I'm like, you're right, I have to cut it. So I had to cut out a scene, I'm like, all right, well, darn. But I know, I see what you're saying.
No, but that's such an excellent story to share with our audience, because this idea that sex furthers the narrative, right? In romance novels, probably in life too, but this idea that sex is more than just the act, that you should think about the emotional journey that the characters are going on. And I love your comment about how you should consider where you want them to be at the end. I think that's so important. It's not just people getting it on. It's really about finding connection between the characters and ensuring that their efforts support the story. So as sad as I am to hear that we did not get to witness this situation between Trixie and Andre, that is a darling on your computer, I love this idea that we should consider the role that sex plays in connecting the characters. That's terrific. Great.
Well, I hope that helps anyone who wants to write some fiery scenes for their book.
Yeah. Read a lot. Read this book. Roseanne, what are the type of genres that you have in your store of romance novels? So I'm curious, like, where would you put happy endings in your store? What would it be under?
Contemporary.
Contemporary. Okay.
Yes. So we have a erotic section.
Okay.
And then we move to paranormal, and then we move to historical, and then contemporary, and then at the end we have romantic suspense, and we have a small inspirational section. Yes.
So
yes.
Paranormal would be, it would be vampires and
werewolves,
ghosts.
Yeah.
Like that.
Anything in outer space. There's some wild.
Outer space.
Alien romances are big right now.
Alien romances are big right now.
I haven't read any because there's so many books I want to read, but yeah, there's a few making their rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, I had no idea. Interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I understand why you need a whole store. That's so great.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. And I look around and go, oh my God, there's like 100 different authors I would carry if I had any more room.
Oh, how wonderful. What a problem to have.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I like to say that, if you don't read romance, there's a corresponding genre to whatever genre fiction you're reading.
Yeah.
Like my husband sometimes we listen to romance audiobooks together, and he really enjoys romantic suspense. I've convinced him to read some Tessa Dare historical romance with me. So like because he likes thrillers, so romantic suspense is the perfect parallel for him to read.
Excellent. So you have this Body Bookworms subscription service, and I am also a member of the Insider Facebook group, and it is really fun to see what people talk about. I have to admit, sometimes I have to close the browser because it's like, whoo, it's a lot at 10 a.m. But, tell our audience about Body Bookworms, because it's so exciting what you're doing.
Sure. I started Body Bookworms almost 6 years ago. It'll be 6 years in August, because I have always enjoyed reading romances that are steamy and spicy, right? Because I think that they're just fun. And I know that sometimes when you read those, you get aroused and you want to, it's like, maybe what they're doing in this book sounds really cool. Like, I want to try that out. So I thought, like, why not take my knowledge of the sex toy industry and teaching, about pleasure to others and combine them. And so I do like themed pairings for the books, and kind of like, I joke like they're wine pairings, but a lot more exciting. And there's always batteries.
That's right. Last a little longer.
That's right.
And we're going to put the link below in the broadcast, but it's bodybookworms.com, right? But we're going to put it below. Yeah. So if interested people can check it out. This would be a great gift for someone, like sister or a friend or a spouse or a partner. And you choose the books yourself. Do you have a group of people who help you choose, or you choose them?
So I choose the books myself, but I take recommendations from our Body Bookworms Insider. So we have a monthly box called the Quickie Box, and it's one book. Usually the book we focus on diverse romances, so written by diverse authors, featuring diverse characters and a pairing. And then we have our quarterly box, which is a little bigger, and we have a wider range of types of romances that we include in those. But the Quickie is the way to start if you want to just check it out and see if you like what we do.
Excellent. Roseanne, we're also wanting to hear from you about books that are popular in the store. So we've talked about all of these vast options we have in the romance genre to read. And if I'm brand new to romance, where should I start? What are some books you would recommend? In addition to happy endings.
Yes, well, of course, happy endings. Yeah, we don't always get all the pre-orders up, but happy endings is on our pre-order page. Well, if you're looking for something sexy, Neon Gods by Katie Roberts is really good.
Okay.
Really good. And she actually signed a bunch of copies. So the books we have of hers in the store are signed.
That's the Hades and Persephone story. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that story. Ooh, it's a romance novel. Ooh.
Yes.
I know that Katie's books are very, very sexy. So
very, very sexy. And he's kind of into exhibitionism, and I'm going to leave it there.
Hades is into exhibitionism.
Yes. In this time, he is. Yes. And so let's see. I was trying to think of a nice book, and I don't know if it was really, really sexy, but I really enjoyed Twice Shy by Sarah Hogle.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm saying her name right. And it's just two very introverts who get together and help each other so that they could both get out a little bit more into the community. It's a really cute little story. I like that one. The latest one that we got in, and we did a pre-order special with Kat Sebastian, was The Queer Principles of Kit Webb. And that's a male historical, and it's really good.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And then let me give you a female. I'm coming out, I believe, in the next week, or else it did come out. I don't know. I already have copies, so I got copies today. But Hellion Waltz by Olivia Waite, and that's female, and that's really a good book too.
Hellion Waltz. These names are awesome.
And that one's a historical too, so
yes,
that's really
so,
exciting.
Yeah,
both of them are historical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, great. So my mind is buzzing. I had, I don't read. I read some romance. Sometimes I just pick up a great book and then realize, oh, this is a romance book, but didn't realize it until I got to the end. I think, that's the other thing people need to know is that they're extremely well written. I mean, think people think romance, they don't take it so seriously, which is a shame because they're great
They're
stories.
really, I mean, they're hard to write. Let me tell you.
Oh,
yeah,
hard to write.
I'm sure.
Don't you think also the fact that the world is so difficult and these books play such an important role in people's lives and bringing them joy and like giving them a respite from the world, like that's like a burden for a writer to be able to craft that that peace that some people need, right? That's sort of like special to go to.
And as when you're writing a romance, you're actually writing 3 different stories. If you have 2 love interests, so you're writing the main plot of the story, and then each of those characters are going through their own journey. So you're going to have to figure out like what their plot line is, their internal plot line. So it's 3 stories that you have to make to work together, and it's really hard.
Wow, I'm sure. I'm not a writer. I'm just going to stick to selling the books.
But don't let me discourage, people who want to write romance. I think
absolutely.
A fabulous genre. The writing community is so welcoming. The readers are great. Like, it's so funny. I was in a bar and restaurant waiting before a book event in the DC area, and someone heard me and a friend talking about romance, and she just introduced herself. And guess who that was? Angelina M. Lopez, who now has 3 amazing books out. I mean, you never know.
You never know.
I'm just really impressed with how it feels like there must be a place for so many people within the genre.
Absolutely.
Like you can really find yourself. Or can you? I mean, I think one of the things we hear about publishing overall is that it's not diverse enough. And so I know that there's a push within the romance field to diversify the stories that are told and also the authors who get published. What do the 2 of you think about? Do you feel like there's progress that's being made? What can readers do to support that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of progress. Now, if you think about traditional publishing, those are the big publishers. I'm traditionally published, Avon's my publisher. There's definitely room for more diverse authors and diverse narratives. But if you look at indie publishing and small presses in romance, like those are, I mean, it's like so many different books that you can read, and it's just a matter of like going to the right place, like Women of Color in Romance. So that's WOCinromance.com. They have fabulous lists of books written by women of color, and they're separated into different like subgenres and tropes, or those are like the types of stories that you like. So they're there. It's just a matter of like knowing where to go and following the people. So if you have an author from a marginalized community that you like, follow them on social media, sign up for their emails, because they're going to recommend more. And we read, like, we don't, I feel like as a community, we don't look down on someone just because they're self-published, because there's so many gatekeepers, right? To be traditionally published, you have to find an agent, right? And then you have to have your agent send your book out. And then traditional publishers can only put out so many books in 1 year. So people who are indie publishing, they are in charge of their own, their writing and putting things out, and they can put things out faster and more work, and they get their eyes, they have these stories burning inside them. And a lot of us are writing stories that are providing representation that we couldn't find when we joined the genre. So they're writing those stories that they wanted to read, that probably many of us are looking to read as well.
Can you tell us that website again? Women of Color.
It's WOC in Romance. So it's Women of Color in Romance. And they do I think like every week they'll do like the new releases this week by authors of color.
It's like a podcast they have, isn't it?
Do they have a podcast? I'm not up on all my podcasts. But I mean, there's lots of recommendations out there. Just follow the authors you love.
Yeah.
Great. That's a great suggestion. Speaking of authors we love, Thien-Kim, what do you recommend to our audience for romance? Other than, I'm gonna keep like your book like 7,000 times in the time conversation that we're speaking today. Other than this great book, what would you tell people? Or better yet, they've read your book, they loved it, they want something else.
Well, if you want like high heat books, let's see. we want really sexy books. I would say Angelina M. Lopez's series. So those are she features Mexican American. They're like very soap opera-y, like telenovela, kind of like out there stories for me, because I'm like, this is crazy. She's a princess of this small European nation, and she's running her own vineyard, you know. But I just love that escape. See, people probably read tons of Alyssa Cole. She's got great stuff. Kennedy Ryan writes these very emotional stories that I mean, like, you know, I read her books, I'm like, man, I would never be able to write like this. Mostly because her tone is different than mine, but her stories are really about the people who are trying to do really big things and don't want to take crap, you know, from their love interests. And they want to change the world, and that's what I love about her books. Let's see who else. Olivia Dade is really fun. She's a great rom-com with plus size heroines. I mean, there's so many. We could be here all day.
Yes, we could be here all day.
But that's the great thing about your shop, Roseanne, lovesweetarrow.com. People can come into the store. They could go to your website and check out the suggestions you make there. I'm sure they could also go to give you a phone call, right? And ask for some help if they need to.
Absolutely.
And
Email us.
Email
us a lot with questions. I'm looking for this book. I'm looking for that book, and we'll do the best we can. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if they call or email the store, they may get you. They may get your daughter. Mm-hmm. So this is fascinating to me. You work with your daughter. How is that? Is that like the best thing that's ever happened to you? Do you two argue? Do you disagree completely about which books go in the best of table in front of the store? Or do you read the same romance novels? Do you discuss the romance novels with your daughter?
Yes, actually, I do. Do we discuss the sex scenes? Probably not. Do we talk about what are the books we liked? Yes. And we tend to read, like, she has a Kindle, and so she gets a lot of arcs through her Kindle, so I can pull off of her Kindle. So she'll say to me, don't read this one, and this one. Either she's reading them or she's like, those are books that I want to read and I don't want you to read. So she will tell me that, and I will stay away from those books. But so between the two of us, we try to hit most of what's coming out, just because if you want to recommend it, you have to have read it. In the beginning, I think we talked loud a lot more than we do now, because we were both so nervous, and was this going to work, and we're going to be successful. And then in the beginning, it was slow, and we were both sitting here, and I don't know why we were. We should have just, one of us manned the store, which is pretty much what we do now, except on weekends. We just try to have just one person here, because it's okay. If we get busy, we can handle it. We've been here for 2 years now. So we do have a gal, Brittany, who comes in Friday mornings and opens for us. And I have to put them up, but she did our window in Pride, and it is so darn good. So darn good. So that's kind of nice. That took the pressure off of us this year. I said, Brittany, what do you want? Can you do the window? And she's like, I'm on it. I'm like, okay. And she just wrote, like, in different colors of the rainbow, love is love, love is love, love is love. And it's just beautiful. Yeah. And so then she set up all the books in the color of the rainbow, and they're all.
Oh, you have to share a picture of that later.
Put that picture on your social media. People can follow.
Yeah.
Excellent. I have to say, that does sound like a bit of a dream to open a bookstore with your mom. Yeah. Like, that does sound like.
And
not for me.
Not you?
My mom and I do better when we have distance between us.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying it would be easy.
Yeah. And we don't argue a lot about what to do with the store, so that's good. And we each have different jobs. Like, she's totally social media. It's like, you saw me trying to get on this thing earlier, and I was just like, I'm calling my husband's trying to help me get on. So I think I know a lot. People are like, you know so much. When you talk to Marissa, she knows twice as much as I do. So it's always nice when people come in and they get both of us, you know what I mean? Or one of us, and then the next time the other one, because we would steer you towards different things. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So can you finish, Roseanne, can you finish this sentence for us? This is a question we ask all the booksellers when they come on the show. Running a successful bookstore is part hard work, part luck, and part what else?
Love.
Oh,
Oh, we've never
perfect for a
gotten that.
romance bookstore.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever gotten the answer before. Oh, that's so good.
Yes. Well, because if you don't love it, you can't do it.
It's true. It's hard work being a bookseller.
It really is. I think as much as prepared as we thought we were like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't sit around all day and read.
No. When you work at the bookstore, in fact, if I'm slow and I've caught up on everything, I'll read because then someone will come in. So that's always my I think I'm going to try to read something this afternoon because it's a little slow, and that'll bring someone in because you just can't sit around and read. Yeah.
So one of the things you launched for the bookstore is a Patreon account.
Yes.
Can you tell our audience what that is?
So a Patreon is just it's a way to give creative people money monthly so that you could help support them.
Okay.
And when we started the business, we did a Kickstarter and we were unsuccessful. And with Kickstarter, you get it all or you get nothing. So we got nothing. Yes. Yeah. So then right away, my daughter's like, I've heard about this Patreon. My son, who's into video games, is like, oh, yes, it's really popular. It's a good thing. You should try it. So we set it up and we have different levels to it. And they're all love levels. Like if at one level, you're affectionate to us. At one level, and they all start with A and they have to do with love. And I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, so at different levels that you give per month, you get something from us. And the highest level is $25 a month, and then you sponsor a bookshelf. So then we put a plaque with your name on a bookshelf. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous.
Yes.
Okay. So, and that's something else. We're going to put the link below the broadcast for people who want to check that out.
That'd be great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And you have exclusive interviews with authors, right? It's part of your Patreon.
Yeah. We did one with you, didn't we, Thien-Kim?
Yeah. I talked to Marissa.
Marissa does the Patreon. So what she did was she did different authors, a lot of authors of color, women of color. And then she did like a 10 or 15-minute interview. And to be a Patreon, you could watch it. And she didn't want to limit it to people who just give $1 because you could just give us $1. She wants everyone to watch. And it's been really successful. The last couple of months, she had a couple of book bloggers on too.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So it's just interesting stuff. A lot of fun.
Well, it's also like a creative way to sustain your business in a very difficult time. It's been hard. Right?
It has been hard. And when you look at Patreon and you see they have 300 patrons, I'm like, oh man.
Exciting.
We'll get there. It's only been 2 years. It's fine. Yeah.
Wonderful.
We're right where we're supposed to be.
Good.
That's all I'll say. Yeah.
So, Thien-Kim, this is the question I really want to ask. What is next for you writing-wise? Is there perhaps another book in the works? Perhaps one that features the Boss Babes?
There is something in the works, nothing set in stone, but I'm hoping that the Boss Babes will get their own stories. So
they need to
I can't promise anything yet, but that's knock on wood.
So if you were in the audience saying, what is a Boss Babe? Another reason why you have to read this book. This book does a wonderful job portraying female friendship, like supportive, loving, kick you in the butt if you need to be kicked in the butt. The kind of friendship that we all really want. And when I finished the book, I was like, oh, I want another book. And I want, I can't wait to continue these stories with these characters. So fingers crossed. And I know I follow you on social media. We follow each other on social media. So I watch you with your pens, writing. So I'm always very hopeful that there's something coming for the rest of us.
I won't stop writing, I promise.
Excellent. Good. As a fan, I'm very happy to hear that. That's what we want to hear. We are coming to the end of our time. Thank you both so much for being here with us today. Really appreciate getting to learn more about your store, Roseanne. Love Sweet Arrow, lovesweetarrow.com. The link is underneath. Please go check it out. A wonderful option, no matter where you live, to purchase romance books, to get recommendations. And of course, Yes.
And if you are you still doing your surprise boxes, Roseanne? If you don't know what you want to read, they'll put together a surprise box for you.
A surprise box at different price levels, and we're going to. We have these 3 ladies who do a virtual event with us once a month. They call themselves the Boozy Book Rods, and we're putting together a special box with them for the summer too.
There you go.
So
Boozy Book Broads, awesome.
Boozy Book Rods,
Okay.
yes. So
And
whoever author comes on has to recommend a drink. Yes.
oh, okay. And so your surprise boxes are arranged by price point. Can if people say only want historical or only want books about Amish women, which apparently is like a whole genre I didn't know about.
It is a whole genre.
Or if they're excited about the aliens that we talked about earlier, can they request that?
Well, you could give us you could send us your Goodreads link and we will look up some different things for you, or you could just say surprise me. And Marissa does those boxes, and everyone we have not had any complaints. People are like, "How did you know?" And I'm like, "Marissa, how did you know?"
Oh,
so, and then we have different little things in there to to make you feel good.
Perfect. Definitely something to check out on your website, lovesweetarrow.com. Learn more about Thien-Kim and her website, which we'll also put below, and that's thienkimlam.com. You can also follow both the store and there you go, our fancy graphics. You can follow both the store and our author on social media to hear more about upcoming events, and all the exciting things that they are doing. Thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate the opportunity to get to talk to both of you and sing the praises of this wonderful book and this fabulous bookstore right outside Chicago. And to our audience, if you like today's show, and we hope that you did, please subscribe to A Mighty Blaze's page on Facebook so you can get notified about all of our events, or hop over to our website, amightyblaze.com, to subscribe to our newsletter. It goes out every Sunday and gives you a rundown of all the interviews we've scheduled for the week. And of course, join us back here next week for another episode of Authors Love Bookstores. Until then, be well and keep reading. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.